Round two, how to simplify your fitness and nutrition for where you are right now. What's up, guys? Marty and Brent back with round two of
Round
the
two.
Reawaken Your Competitive Spirit Masterclass. And this one is all about removing the fluff and taking the complexity away from what it means to live healthy with a ton of energy and a vibrant state, so you can go out and do all the things you need to do to things from being a father who can play with their kids, being somebody who's moving on into the grandfather realm that wants to be around for a long time. We want you staying as healthy as possible throughout this whole thing. So the purpose of this particular presentation is we're going to be talking about the principles that guarantee you the results that you're looking for without all the fluff when it comes to your physical health and your vitality. So pretty excited about this, but Brent and I both, we wanted to give you a quick disclaimer about our credentials as far as this matter in particular. So Brent, I'll let you go ahead and go first.
Yeah. Well, the real disclaimer is the nutritional component. We're gonna just keep this real general. Neither Marty nor I are, I'm going to say, certified or licensed nutritional counselors. We don't have a degree in nutrition or clinical nutrition, but what we do have is tons of experience, years of experience with, combined between the two of us, probably, I would say right around a couple thousand people. I mean, we've both been in this ball game for a while. And so this nutritional component should be taken as I'm going to say some guidelines. So we're not writing you a script and saying do this. These are just general guidelines that we've practiced, that we've had our clients practice, and we've gotten awesome results from. So that's kind of the disclaimer. However, as we move through the round two, during the late minutes of round two, we're going to touch on stuff that we have obviously kind of immersed ourselves into, and that's the fitness component, and that's exercises and good and bad, and what things will make a difference in how you move and how active you are. So thanks, Marty, for passing that along. So I'll toss it back to you. Boom. You got it?
I got it.
I'm a righty.
I'm a lefty, so I tend to come at things on the opposite or reverse angle that most people are looking for. But I just want to say real quick that I am a certified nutrition counselor underneath the Dolce diet, a 4-time MMA trainer of the year, Mike Dolce. And as Brent said, I'm not a registered dietitian. I don't have a degree in nutrition or dietetics, but because of that particular connection, when I do work with people, I have access to a dietitian who can dial in for everything specific that you're looking for. But for you listening today, we have no idea where you are on your journey right now, and that's a big deal. So there's no way we could ever give any specific advice. So just to reiterate one more time what Brent was saying, these are general guidelines that I have used personally to lose 100 pounds, and that enabled me to do all sorts of things and completely change my life, see and do a lot of things. And that's why I'm so passionate about this part of it. So with that being said, first off, let's talk about what foods to eat. So whenever I was first getting into this, let me tell you a mistake I made first, a quick story about a mistake. I was 100 pounds overweight, and I sort of had that moment where I was like, dude, you got to do something. So what was the first thing that I did? I looked for some magic pill, powder, concoction, potion, something that was here, just drink this and you'll be okay. Like, or just take this pill and it'll burn all the body fat off, or
Yeah,
just,
of course. Yeah.
right. Like I'm admitting it. I looked for the easy way out at first, and I did that. And I got to tell you, a horrible thing happened at first. I lost a little bit of weight. A little bit of weight did come off with this thing or that thing. And I think it was just the belief itself that this was going to be the thing that was going to allow me to lose the weight, to get back in shape, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it didn't take too long before I just hit a wall and crashed and realized that it's like, man, you were starting to feel better, and now all of a sudden you feel worse than you did because you've been running with the gas tank on low for the past couple of weeks, months, however long it had been. No matter what I did, no matter how hard I exercised, I couldn't burn off that last 15 pounds or whatever it was. Like, the body fat stopped coming off. And it wasn't until I sort of realized and came to this conclusion that I'm about to share with you guys. It's not about starving yourself. It's about fueling yourself for the demands that you're putting on your body evenly throughout the day. Was like, even though that may seem very old school and elementary, that was the fix. Because as soon as I did that, the body fat began to melt off so easy. I was always fully fed, always fully hydrated. There was uh, no suffering through pain to do this. So, and it all starts with what foods you eat and what are you actually putting in your body. And quite simply, it's real food. So what do I mean whenever I say real food? I mean food that you could go out into your garden right now and pick, or pull off a tree, pull off a vine. Wild caught meats where you could go out and harvest the animal in their natural habitat, where they are when they're not stressed out, they're not pumped up full of antibiotics and all this other garbage. Sprouted grains, just other foods like that that are very micronutrient dense. Because whenever you think of starvation, people see like real skinny dude with like ribs poking out and stuff. But whenever I look at somebody who's obese, I also recognize that they are starving for the micronutrients. They're eating a whole bunch of empty things. So Brent, what do you have to add on to this?
Oh man, that covered a lot right there. I agree with you wholeheartedly with someone who's extremely overweight. Is, typically, not always, but typically those individuals are, they're looking to get healthier. They have kind of a knee-jerk reaction at one point, and seeing themselves in the mirror, and the first thing that goes through their head is, I got to stop eating to lose this weight. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. Fact of the matter is, it's not the consumption of food, it's what the consumption is. And that's really where you got to steer your eyes and steer your head is. And Marty and I were just talking about this before we got on, but he and I are very similar as far as how we feel about food. And it could be because, Marty's lost 100 pounds and kind of got his head straight. And I've always been into health and fitness. And our philosophy on this is you eat to live. Most individuals who want to lose, or who have gotten to the point to where they need to lose some weight, they live to eat. And we have to change our mindsets to value proper nutrition. It's very easy to go to a vending machine and pop out a candy bar, or go, raid your pantry and grab some chips and stuff because you're hungry. They're empty calories. They're going to fill you up quick, but you're going to be really hungry shortly thereafter. So what we need to kind of reverse engineer what you're doing now, so we can input better choices in as we go along on this path of healthy righteousness.
Right on. And I just want to add on, a lot of you guys might also be thinking is like healthy food equals like bland and very like not good tasting food. That could be like nothing could be further from the truth than
Yeah,
that. You can
right.
take these very natural nutrient dense ingredients and make awesomely delicious food. I mean, trust me, I just got done eating something that was
Yeah,
awesome.
the salmon salad. Yeah.
Yeah,
Another thing I want to touch on before we move on, but um, it the the plan that someone's on. If someone is a meat eater, or if someone enjoys to have a meat with their nutrition, that's great. Go ahead. If someone's plant-based or vegetarian or vegan or pescatarian, whatever it is, we're not trying to say that one nutrition thing is better than another. We're just what we're trying to respond to with a lot of people that we've been in contact with is that we need to adjust the macronutrients and where they're getting their foods from. So just to clarify that, if someone wanted to, my wife is a plant-based. She's been on a plant-based diet for nearly a year now. I don't necessarily like it because I'm a meat eater. Um, but I can understand the reasons why she chose that route. And it had nothing to do with losing weight. It had everything to do with her health. So just wanted to throw that in there just to make sure that people understood that we're not here saying this diet is the best or this diet is the worst. We're just trying to teach you some some things to utilize while you're deciding what to eat.
and that just got me thinking. It's like, what's my stance on that too? Because I mirror your sentiments, but the way I would say it is, I am anti-exclusion. If as long as it fits within the realm of real food, like I would rather just on a generalized basis, people eat a little bit of everything as far as carbs, fats,
Yeah.
and proteins go. And again, whether you choose to consume animal products is not or not is often a like it's a personal choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's a moral choice. Sometimes we're not here to sway you one way or the other on this. We're just saying that ingredient quality equals quality of results is what we're saying.
Right. Right. Yep. You got it.
All right.
Cool.
So moving on here, that kind of segues. Well, like, how often should I be eating? And again, my teacher on this was four-time MMA trainer of the year, Mike Dolce, and he says, and this is what I followed as well: eat every 2 to 4 hours. If you view your metabolism like an engine on a train, where you have to keep throwing coal on the fire to keep the fire going, so the steam engine keeps rolling. If you take all the coal you have and you dump it on the fire, you're going to smother the fire out. Your metabolism stops. If you don't feed the fire is going to burn out. Your metabolism stops. So by eating every 2 to 4 hours evenly based off of the demand and energy output you're putting on your body, that's the way to go. But Brent had a really good point about if you're somebody who right now is eating 1 or 2 times a day, that's probably going to be a pretty big adjustment. So he had some good advice on how to take this one step at a time. So go ahead, Brent.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always been under the philosophy that, when I'm training my clients, when they come in, we have a consultation and I kind of see what they're doing now, versus how I want to blueprint it out to get them where I feel and where they feel they need to be. Now, of course, you and I know that training never ends. It just changes. But in terms of the beginning, um, if someone's nutrition is like Marty said, if they're eating 1 or 2 times a day, if you listening are eating 1 or 2 times a day, we're not going to try to shove a square peg in a round hole. I mean, we're just what Marty was pretty much describing is optimally. If you get to that point, great. choose to eat about 4 times a day. I eat a fairly, I'm going to say not a significant breakfast, but I get maybe a 25% of my calories from breakfast, probably 25% from lunch, probably less than that, probably about 15. And then I kind of go heavier during the afternoon when I get home, and then the evening is when I really go heavy, which is just the opposite of what a lot of nutritionists and counselors will say, but it works for me because my demands in the morning aren't as great. I mean, I can get away with a coffee, I drink some coffee, I grab 4 or 5 hard-boiled eggs, a banana, and I'm out the door. Um, on some days, I'll go to the Waffle House and have a nice big breakfast, or the family and I will go out and I'll get a nice big breakfast. But I've found in probably the last few years that I'd rather have a little bit lighter of a breakfast, and a little bit lighter of a lunch, and then maybe a moderate snack and a pretty heavy dinner. Again, that just seems to work for me. That's probably one of the reasons is, Marty, is because my training specifically, I typically would train in the evenings when I was done with my clients. So that probably had something to do with it. Like Marty was mentioning, we're trying to guide you for the demands of your body. So if you're training in the morning, your nutritional demands are going to be higher in the morning. Now, in the summer, I'm going to be working out early in the morning, so that we may have a conversation, I don't know, in 4 or 5 weeks, and I'll say, man, I'm gorging for breakfast and I'm eating a light dinner. So that's just my demands.
Yeah, it really depends on, if we're following the principles that I go under. It's eat real food every 2 to 4 hours.
Yep.
Eating until satisfied, not until full, based off of those energy demands. Because like a big misconception out there is like there will be all sorts of for lack of a better term, wives' tales out there that's like, don't eat after 6 o'clock, or don't. Yeah. It's like, body has no idea what time it is. It's like,
right.
All your body knows is like, do we have enough energy for now and for a little bit of time right now?
Right. If we think back to our caveman ancestors, I mean, they had to find their food. So, I mean, that put them in a very precarious position where they had to be able to carry some of that energy farther than us now. I mean, we can go to the grocery store and pick something up, but so it's funny how much food we have access to, and good food, quality food, but yet we as an American society, we choose to eat, junk food. So junk in, junk out, real food in, real good energy out.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, without a doubt. And I was,
what do they say? We're the most overfed and undernourished country in the world.
Yeah. Overfed.
There's a lot of truth to that.
Overfed and undernourished is for sure. So it's like, how do you fix this? And like at the end of the day, if you talk to either Brent or I long enough, it's gonna come back to it's a mindset thing. So here is a mindset that you should consider to adopt right here is an on the move mindset, just like Brent was describing. Like, pretend for a second that you are one of our ancestors, one of our hunter-gatherer ancestors who had to stay moving and get enough food to where they could sustain what they got, but also realize that we got to eat later today too. So if you adopt an on-the-move mindset, you're going to be eating a whole lot lighter at a time so you can stay moving. If you stop and you have a big old feast, you're probably not going anywhere. You're going to lay down on the couch and burp.
Well, I'll tell you right now, some of the people listening are probably just doing just that. Like, they don't eat breakfast. They cruise out the door with a cup of coffee, maybe 10 cups of coffee, who knows. Now here's where I see a little bit of a difference. It's either no lunch or a super heavy lunch. Either way, you're detracting from your energy levels. Both of them are gonna. So they're both gonna crap out around the same time. Let's say you eat a heavy lunch at noon or no lunch at noon, you're gonna crap out at about 2 or 3 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do we reach for? Fake energy.
Yep.
We're gonna go grab another cup of coffee. We're gonna grab some energy drink or something like that.
Yeah.
And that basically is screwing with not only our metabolism, but it's screwing with our
hormones,
our organs. Yeah.
Adrenaline specifically. So that kind of leads into we touched on this with what foods to eat. Now let's talk about how to source your ingredients. Because if you're like, all right, Marty and Brent, I got the on the move mindset now. Where am I going to find my food?
Yeah, where am I going? What am I going to do? Tell me.
I'm going to find my food, because I'm not exactly a hunter, and we're not exactly living way back then. And
right.
I get it. So, like I said, as natural and close to the source as you can get it. So, right now everything's crazy, obviously, but there, used to be this thing called farmers markets, but now the farmers markets have kind of banded together, and they're actually like delivering like bulk packages and boxes of organic fruits and vegetables right to your door right now. So, I mean, there's an easy option right there. I'm not sure of anything specific to tell you right now, but it would be worth a Google, I would say. Whenever you go into the grocery store, like a good tip or trick is to stay on the perimeter, the outskirts of the grocery store. Try to stay out of the middle.
Yeah.
All the junk and processed stuff's in the middle. All the real food tends to hover on the outside. And most importantly, though, and I'll let Brent take it from me because we both have a lot to say about this. Whatever you do, when you go to the grocery store and you pick up whatever it is, flip over the box, look at the ingredients. And a 4-year-old should be able to tell you what every ingredient in that box is. If a 4-year-old can't tell you, probably shouldn't be eating it. So, Brent, take it away.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I hadn't heard that before. Yeah, if you can't pronounce what's in there, don't eat it. I mean, I'm not saying most, because of course, every and none is, there's no such thing, but there's a very large portion of that grocery store or a grocery store that lines the aisles up with things that have a very long shelf life. That's why the stuff on the outsides are on the outsides. They need to sell. I think more and more people are going to the outsides, which is a good thing. Mm-hmm. Now there's even organic aisles, but even there you got to be kind of cautious about, what's organic is such a buzzword anymore. It's like, all right, well, if it's organic, it must be good, but that's not necessarily true.
Organic.
Nobody regulating that. I mean, they can stamp it, said organic, but if you go into the next aisle, maybe it's an organic cereal, and you go to the next aisle and you pick up a similar cereal, it's going to have the same ingredients on it. So you just got to be real, real careful about reading labels. And this is, we're probably reiterating what you already know. I mean, this is nothing new. We're not inventing the wheel again, but it seems like this has to be spoken over and over and over again. Just flip the box over.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, organic soda is still soda.
Right.
Organic cookies are still cookies.
Still cookies.
You know.
You know what I really get a kick out of now, Marty, and it's pretty funny, but they sell the Oreo thins now or whatever, some cookies that's thin, and they're like touting it as healthier. Well, all it is just a smaller Oreo, and you're paying more for it. So, you just really, really pay attention to what you're putting in your mouth. I mean, that it's the only thing that we do that's really, when we get up in the morning, I mean, I'm sorry, when we're sleeping, that's recovery. And when and if we do exercise, typically I mean, if you're exercising, a decent amount, that's probably going to accumulate to like 2 to 3 hours a week, somewhere around there, maybe more, maybe less, who knows. But you typically, if you're taking Marty's advice and eating every 2 to 4 hours, do the math. Let's say you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, you go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. How many hours is that? That's what, 15, 16 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So you do the math, and you're going to be eating a lot more than you're doing everything else. And you have to be more mindful of it.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else, actually, I'm going to add something to that. Just got it. But with the exception of nutrition and feeding ourselves, everything else that we do expends energy. Everything. If you sleep, I hope people are sleeping that are listening, you're expending energy. When you get up and you take a shower and you get ready for work, you're expending energy. When you sit at work, you're expending energy. When you exercise, you expend energy. So this is the only thing that mitigates that energy expenditure. And if you're not investing correctly, then that energy is going to suffer, period. End of story. I mean, so I get, yeah, it just crossed my mind. I was like, I got to spew that out before I forget, because we may have a good idea or two, Marty.
Yeah. I mean, I understand. You just got to get it out sometimes. Which, by the way, like another side tip right here. I mean, this is kind of funny, and who doesn't love a good flatulence or poop joke? But speaking of, I mean, and this is a real solid indicator, and I'm trying to be serious as I say this, is like input does equal output. So
True.
If you are having problems with your output, might be time to look at what the input is.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
I know when I change my diet, if I have a little refeed day or cheat day, whew, it's not good, man. It is not good. I hurt all over.
So I mean, this segues sort of into our next point right here, is like how to eat for your body type. Mm-hmm. And the simple answer to this is one word. It's test. Like, whether it's like, you think of your, most likely culprits out there. I think of dairy products mess a lot of people up, because at some point in our lives we lose the ability to digest lactose. Like, at some point the clock runs out and it's like, you're not doing that anymore. So I tend to treat my dairy and my own personal diet like a spice. But when it comes to like, how do you eat for your individual body type, it's all about testing and taking notes of how you look and how you feel, how you're performing. This is where keeping track of your workout routines and individual performances on different exercises and stuff like that is super important, because if it's normal for me to have like really awesome cardio reasonably for 40 minutes or so consistently, and then all of a sudden, like, I hit a 20-minute mark one day and I start dying and gassing out, it's time to look at something. Either there's like overtraining or underfeeding is going on, or wrong fuel sources for my body specifically. So it's time to sort of write it down and keep track. And Brent and I, we sort of debated back and forth if we were going to tell you guys about, ectomorphs and endomorphs and mesomorphs, but we came to conclusion that we were going to simplify it. So I'm going to turn it over to Brent, and I'm going to let
Yeah.
tell you.
Thanks, Marty. So yeah, like Marty said, simplify it. I mean, where he and I, when we train people, we see a lot of different people coming in. And I would say by and large, if someone's trying to lose weight, they're overthinking it, or there's something that they want to transform their physical appearance. They overthink it. And when you overthink it, nothing gets done. If you're shooting for 5 different targets, nothing gets done. So, so what we need to do is basically figure out, is your natural body a more thin? Are you a bigger guy, or are you somewhere in between? Now that's getting a little bit more specific than what we want to get into right now. But I mean, first you got to take a real hard look at where you are and where you want to go. And from there, make adjustments to your nutrition plan. So there's actually 4 macronutrients, but the fourth one is alcohol, but so we're not going to get into that. But so there's protein, carb, and fat. I'm sure everybody knows that. And what we need to do is manipulate those variables to present the client or you as an individual watching the best source of energy for you. I can get away with a little extra carbohydrate because I'm up moving around all the time. Someone who sits at a desk job might not be able to do that because carbohydrates are a very quick fuel source typically, and if they're not burned off in a quick manner, then they're going to turn into fat, and you're going to gain weight. Now, I'm not condoning going on a low carb diet because that might not work for you. But what I am condoning is you need to look at what you're eating now. Is just get rid of the crap. Like if you're drinking soda all the time, cut it down on it. If you're eating Pop-Tarts in the morning, grab something else. Grab a piece of fruit. I mean, you don't have to make this really, really, you have to be thoughtful, but you don't have to make it mind blowing. This isn't rocket science. It's just about having you feel better. Marty?
I was just thinking of a real simple way to manipulate and test this, and just again some very loose guidelines on how you should treat this, because like Brent was saying, if you're somebody who's very, like, you put on muscle very easily, you know what else comes along with muscle? Like it has to. Body fat. Body fat must accompany muscle. The more muscle you have, the more body fat you're going to have. That's just the way it works. But there is a ratio that you need to be thinking about keeping, right? And likewise, if you're on the slimmer side and you have a hard time putting on muscle, you're going to have a hard time putting on fat as well. And how you treat your carbohydrates is just going to depend on how your body metabolizes it along with your energy output throughout the day. So this is a very simple thing that you can do. Think about your protein as staying steady, right? So first thing you're going to want to figure out is how much protein that you need to sustain and repair your body consistently. So I don't really want to get into the math on this.
Yeah, that's good. We could be going way down a rabbit hole there.
I'm trying to be real careful right here, but just for now, let's just call it ×2 of your lean body mass. And again, try not to get too technical here. Let's say for easy math that you're 150 pounds, right? You're 150 pounds at 10% body fat. So that means that you have 15 pounds of fat, right? And then 150 minus 15 is 135. So 135 pounds is your lean mass. So that means 135 grams would be 1 on your protein. Let's just multiply it by 2 to be safe. So now our flat number is 300 grams of protein per day. That's our flat number in our pretend thing here. your carbs and your fats are on a seesaw. So let me go this way. So the more carbs you have, your fats are going to be down here, but the less carbs you start eating, the fats have to come up to replace that energy. It's just a different type of energy. Your body metabolizes it different, and it varies from individual to individual. So you're going to have to play with this seesaw and find your sweet spot while keeping your protein steady is pretty much the moral of the story.
Yeah, and I'll add to that as well. And again, without getting down a huge rabbit hole, you know, the USDA says, you know, a 2,000 calorie diet is the average. Well, I mean, that's good for 50% of the people, maybe, but you know, that, not even, that's the bell curve. You know, there's some that need less, some that need more. I'm a 255-pound man. I'm probably sitting at around 12%. So you figure, and for caloric intake needs, I mean, that's pretty much what you need to find out first, is how many calories do I need just to survive? And you can Google, you know, how much do I need just for homeostasis? That's just basically you doing nothing, just hanging out, sleeping, going to the bathroom. And there's lots of different websites that you can go to, but they're all very similar. And use those, use a very, you know, one that you trust, WebMD. You know, you could probably go to a nutritional website and find it. But I mean, lots of nutritionists and certified dietitians and registered dietitians will use some sort of multiplier based on what your lean weight and what your muscle or your fat weight is. You find the calories. So let's just say my lean weight is, you know, 230. I don't know. That sounds about right. About 230 pounds. So typically for me, I like to eat about 12 to 15 times that, or I'm sorry, yeah, 12 to 15 times that. So you get into the 3,000, 4,000 calorie range. If I don't get that, I feel sluggish. So is 2,000 calories good for me? No, absolutely not. But then once I find that, let's just say it's 3,000, and based on Marty's model, I would need about 500 grams of protein. I don't eat quite that much. I usually do about 1.5 grams per lean. I mean, you're talking a minuscule amount anyways. So, you know, based on that math, what do I got? 230 time, what's 230 plus, let's just call it roughly 400. I mean, so I got my 400 grams times 4 calories per gram. That's 1,600 calories right off the bat. Boom. I got to take those out. The rest, the remaining calories that I got, I can adjust that based on what I want to do. If I'm really super active and, you know, I'm training real hard in mixed martial arts or boxing or, you know, weightlifting, I need to keep my carbohydrates a little bit higher, my fat a little bit lower. If I'm looking to lean out, then I just flip them around. You know, it's really that simple. Like Marty said, protein should stay pretty standard across the board. It might vary a little bit based on your goals, but, you know, like typically it's, you know, 0.8 grams per pound of lean body weight up to, you know, 2.5 grams. I mean, some of these big, huge power lifters, and you hear about them eating 10,000 calories a day. I mean, they need a mass amount of protein every day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll send it back to you. So that's kind of the way I feel about it.
I mean, to wrap it up and put a bow on it, and this was the reason that both Brent and I were like, how far do we get down into this rabbit hole?
Right.
At the end of the day, it's all about how you're performing, how you're looking, and or even over how you're looking, how you're feeling. Because if you're on your way to looking great and you're feeling great and you're performing great, things are going well. And there's a saying that my mentor said, Mike Dolce, on this too, is like, don't count calories, make calories count. So
yeah, very good.
If you're
like that.
If you're going to consume those calories, you need to be prepared to burn them soon.
Right. I'll add just one more thing before we go on to the next section is, um, you have to, you have to know what your goal is. What are you trying to accomplish? And B is, you, as a human being, there's going to be times where you feel like just eating whatever the hell you want. And guess what? That's okay. That's okay. I do the same thing. Marty does the same thing. And I actually call it a refeed day, or I don't call them cheat days because they're actually part of my plan.
Yeah.
There's several things that happen, but psychologically, okay, I've done that. Now I got to get back on the wagon. And hormonally, there's a lot of things that happen in the body when you change it up a little bit. So, and I don't want to get into that, but that's another day, another story. But
absolutely,
don't feel like this is a chore. It should feel like something that you should be doing on a regular basis, and then go off on a tangent occasionally. It's all good. People do it. It's what happens.
I mean, if you think back to round one, the conversation about going through seasons, is relevant through here. It's like like ultimately, what goal do you have, and what season are you in right now?
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So now that we're all nice and fueled up, and we're segueing right into what exercises to do and which to avoid, what's a bunch of bull crap that's going to waste your time, etc. Instead of talking about all that stuff, because there could be millions of things that you could do that would just be an absolute waste of your time. We're going to give you the exercises that you should be doing so you can forget about the rest. So Brent and I are saying the same thing through here. I have it in 5 parts. He has it in 7. But I'll go ahead and throw mine out there.
Yeah, throw yours out, and then I'll add the 2 that I see as being, and the two that I have are just basically from, I guess, from my old stuff that I used to do when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So
we got push-ups, we got pull-ups, we got squats, we got deadlifts, we have lunges, which is actually my way of saying rotation. So that was one of his next ones. So go ahead, Brent. His was
I had the same things. I have push, pull, squat, which you have, and Marty mentioned push-ups and pull-ups. If you take it a step further, I do vertical and horizontal push pull. I mean, you do as well. You just name those exercises. But so push, pull, squat, hip hinge is really a deadlift. I mean, that's what that is. Lunges. What's that? Did I get? So push, pull, squat, hip hinge, lunges. So those are 5. Those are the 5 that Marty likes. And then there's 2 more that I take. And Marty used the lunges as his rotations, but I like actual rotations. And the last one is carries. That one gets kind of put by the wayside a lot because no one thinks about it. Now, carries could be holding weights while you're doing lunges, or holding weights while you're doing squats, or holding weights while you're doing deadlifts. So it can be factored into those. I actually, when I train my clients, particularly, actually all of them, I train people from, I've trained 90-year-olds, and I've trained 10-year-olds. And, the one thing that they all have in common is they're going to carry something at some point in their life, whether it's grocery bags or, I don't know, kids, whatever it is. That is a movement that needs to be trained. And these are what Marty and I and other fitness professionals deem as fundamental movements, fundamental human movement patterns. And that's what we really want to really push y'all that are watching this, is we need to go back to basics. We don't need to be standing on a dang Bosu ball doing curls, or, doing some one-footed, one-armed, tightrope act. That's not the purpose of getting, training yourself. Now, in some instances, those can be okay. Not the Bosu ball with the curl, by the way. But if you think fundamental human movement patterns, these are patterns. Those are really what are going to set you up for success in any training program you do.
So
I'll throw it back to you on that.
To add on to what he's saying, you only ever need one tool when it comes to your physical fitness, and luckily you're attached to it at all times. Just your body, you know. Like if you can't put, proverbially speaking, put yourself away, it's somewhere between 45 minutes to an hour and a half, you're not working hard enough. So, and you only need your body to get the job done. And sometimes you might not even have 45 minutes. Sometimes, I mean, you can do it in 20, you can do it in 15. Like it all depends on where you are. And more importantly than the amount of time you can go, the main number one thing you must focus on throughout this whole thing is your posture and your form, and being as correct and precise as you possibly can be. Otherwise, might you get stronger? Yeah, you probably will, but you'll get stronger in a way that's going to lead to injuries, and that's going to put you back on the couch, and that's going to start a vicious cycle of overeating and depression. And that's just not the direction that you want to go. So we just, to close out, we're entering the last part here. I wanted to discuss and demonstrate 3 very common postural distortions that, you know, pretty much everybody out there has one of these going on to some extent. Even the dudes that are
making me sit up. You're making me sit up.
like, even the dudes that are perfect posture, and it's like there are dudes who will overdo the perfect posture.
Right.
You know, and that itself is a problem. But the 3 most common ones, and I'm just gonna dip the camera just a touch for the upper part. So upper cross syndrome, right? If I'm trying to get the camera angle right, if my head's over my shoulders like so, upper cross syndrome happens whenever the muscles in the front are stronger than the muscles in the back, and that causes this to happen. The head dips down, the shoulders are rolling forwards, the head stick out, chin comes up, et cetera, et cetera. So obviously, sitting all day at a computer doing stuff like this adds to this. So that's upper cross. Lower cross.
Can I add something to that real quick, Marty?
Yes, go ahead.
So get in that position again. And upper cross syndrome is basically an extreme version of what we call kyphosis. And basically kyphosis is just the rounding of the upper back. Now, more times than not, when I see it, I'm sure Marty's the same way. It's a lot of the office workers and people that are at the desk. Oh, no, go back again. I want to see you again. So if you see them like that, now, if you imagine your muscles as a rubber band, the front of his neck, were right underneath his beard, and his pecs up top by his collarbone, his biceps, okay, all of those are basically shortening at that point. When he stands up in a normal erect posture, those muscles stretch out a little bit. So if you're a constantly, imagine, being a rubber band being pulled down the whole time, it's going to be really hard to straighten back up. So there's a lot of bad things that can happen from not only lower back, but if you think, rotator cuff issues, neck issues, breathing issues. I mean, there's so many things. Yeah, jaw issues. Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of irregularities that can happen based on one little thing that you can correct. Right. Hell, I think there's products now that you can strap around your shoulders and they try to pull you up.
Yeah, I would still avoid those.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. You're only getting the yin. You got to do the yang too.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, because it's about strengthening your upper back to the point where your shoulder blades can take back over and pull everything back and down. So, like, if you think of, your back is like the tapestry that the front part of your body is hung on. It's like that back has to be flat
It has
and
to be
straight.
strong. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So obviously, the reason that we tell you about this one in particular, if you have upper cross syndrome, especially to this degree that I'm demonstrating, I mean, it gets worse too. You know, all sorts
Yeah.
of stuff could happen here. But push-ups might not be the thing to do if you're stuck like this, you know, because that's only strengthening the muscles in the front. You need to be focused on getting this back and strengthening what's behind you to jack yourself back up. So moving on to lower cross syndrome, and I'm
Mhm.
going to try and get this as best I can. So the hips underneath is normal, but whenever the legs start to kick out and the lower back begins to arch and my hips are pointed at the ground, this is lower cross. So basically the same thing's happening with the muscles in the front have become too strong. These are pulling me down and my butt has gotten too weak. You just
Mhm.
need to reverse that to come on out. Now, this puts tremendous pressure on the lower back and on the knees, on the ankles, and leads into the next thing we're going to show. But Brent, I know you got stuff to say about this, so take it away.
About the back, you talking about low back?
Yeah, just the
Yeah,
lower cross.
so like, and again, Marty is really showing you the extreme version of lower cross, and in a scenario where it needs to be fixed, it's called lordosis, and basically it's when those what I have people do is, and I'll have Marty demo this too. So if you take your middle fingers and put them in the front parts of your hips, the front bones of your hips, and you take your thumbs and put them in the back parts of your hips, I mean, you got to stretch them back a little bit. That should be fairly level. In lower cross syndrome or lordosis, you got it's a line straight down, and like Marty said, your center of mass changes, which can put a serious load on the spine, particularly the lumbar spine. It also puts some stress on the thoracic spine, of course, the cervical spine. But you know, where a lot of exercisers make the mistake is, you know, I don't know why, but crunches seem to be still on the rise here. If your hip flexors are already shortened, your quads are tight, then you start doing ab work, you're actually creating more pelvic tilt, which is going to create more of a slant, which is going to create more pain in the back, which is going to, again, get you in a slew of other issues. So those things need to be identified, A, and B, they need to be corrected before you, like Marty said, before you get injured and you're on the sidelines again. You know, we're trying to get off the sidelines and get back into the game. And you know, the more destructive stuff that you're doing on the field is going to set you back on the sidelines and in with the trainer. In this case, it could be physical therapy, it could be a chiropractor, there could be, you know, worst case scenario is you're getting surgery on your lower back. I mean, this is all stuff that can be fixed.
Mm-hmm. And
So yeah, so I'll let you. I got, you know, again, Marty and I could go on and on and on. This could be we could do like a 10-hour dissertation on this,
we
but
could.
that's not the point here.
This could get out of control fast. So
Way out of control really quickly. So
um,
let's go down to the third one.
all right, the third one, pronation distortion. And yeah, I know it sounds scary, but this is what it is. So I'm trying to back up all the way here. All right. So normally your knees are in line with your toes right here, like right over the ball of your foot, and your arches are picked up off the ground. Pronation distortion is when this happens. The knees are coming in. My foot is flattening out and it's actually coming off the ground on the outside where my like the pinky side of the leg is. So this right here is all kinds of bad news for the knee, for the ankle, and again, the origin of this is the hip in the front being too tight. That pelvic tilt toward the floor makes it very easy to do this. So basically, when you stretch out the front and you strengthen the back, right, that allows your hip to push back in and things start to line back up. So, Brent, thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I was good. That was a good explanation. What we typically call that is, well, basically it's called a Q angle, and it's from the hip to the knee to the ankle or the foot. So now females tend to have a little bit, I'm going to say their angle is it's not as directly down, because the hips are typically wider because of childbirth. That's the way they're biologically created. Males are more straight down. So females typically are more prone to this, but males are, especially if you're sitting in a chair all day, you get this rotation of the hips that occurs. So not only now are your hip flexors, your quads tightening up, but your adductors as well. And those are the inner thigh, and it starts to pull you in as well. So and I'll touch on the ankle real quick because we're kind of going there anyways. So Marty and I both also agreed that there can be inherently bad things that happen if the ankle isn't mobile. Now, very few people think about their ankles because they think about everything pretty much hips. I've been told my hips are tight. I've been told my shoulders are tight, or my upper body is tight. But we need to trace this down and see what's going on with the ankle. Typically, if the ankle isn't able to what we call dorsiflex, which is to when you squat down, I'll have Marty demo this. When you squat down, you should have a decent amount of dorsiflexion like he's pulling his toe towards his knee as he squats down. That should be the position. So he's got a good amount of dorsiflexion. Most individuals have a hard time doing this. Their calves are tight, their ankles, which creates some wreaks havoc in the ankles. And when you lose mobility in the ankles and you're squatting down to pick something up off the ground or lift or do a body weight squat, something in your body has to compensate. So if you could demo one with a lack of dorsiflexion and show me what happens to your upper body when you go down.
I'll show it from the side and the front.
Yeah. So when he squats down without a good amount of dorsiflexion, he immediately goes into a really big angle with his upper body, and that can put a lot of stress on the low back, especially when you're loaded with something. Now, if you're doing a body weight, that's terrible. So that's going to put a lot of pressure on the knees. And when we widen them out, that's what it should look like. A lot of, obviously, if you're listening, you're a former athlete and you may have broken an ankle or sprained an ankle. I know I have. And that prevents me from going into a really deep squat like Marty was in. So I have to be real careful about the distance that I travel down in order to train effectively. And I constantly work on my ankles. I try to improve my ankle mobility, but there's a lot of scar tissue and stuff that's been built up, and I not really want to go in for any kind of surgery. So I just make the best with what I got. But if you don't have decent amount of ankle mobility, it's going to really bite you in the ass when you're trying to, get under a bar or pick up weights or do something, or pick up a kid or a grandkid. I mean, that's how it's never something where you're picking up a heavy load. Typically it's when you go down and pick up a pencil. Oh, my back. And you think it's because I bent over to get a pencil, but it's not. It's because your movement was inherently flawed for years. Pencil was the straw that broke the camel's back.
I mean, literally, it's like how many times have you heard of somebody who like just got done deadlifting anywhere from like 300 to 500 pounds or something, and then they like go in the shower and they bend over to pick up the towel, and then pow, they're down.
Right. Yeah, that's when it happens. I've never injured my back deadlifting ever, or squatting. Where I have gotten a little tweak is when I, squat down to pick something up, or I drop something, I just lean over to pick it up, and boom, oh man.
Yep.
So, fortunately, that hasn't happened for years and years because I actually have done stuff for it. And I'm beat up. I'm a beat up old man from football. I mean, I played football for nearly, a decade and a half. And, I'm beat up. So if I can improve, y'all out there watching can improve. That's for sure. I was jacked up.
And, I got to tell you, like ACL injuries are, they're common in sports. I mean, it's not like it's the wildest thing in the world whenever it happens. But I will tell you from firsthand experience that it is a life-changing injury whenever that happens. And having gone through total ACL reconstruction after having to build it back up from scratch, I encountered all of these issues that we just demonstrated. I had to rebuild my body from the ground up and go through these various muscle imbalances along the way of building stuff back up, because you are where you are right now, and then you're like, I'm going to go out, I'm going to get after it, I'm going to do a hard workout or a couple of hard workouts, and then you get sore, and then you kind of bounce back from that. But what you didn't realize is like there are certain muscles that were doing too much at the time, and they tightened up, and they folded you forward pretty much in some way, in some fashion. And if you don't stop and address those things, they turn into stuff, whatever it is. So basically,
We're not saying, and just to add on real quick, is we're not saying to the people that are listening, we're not saying that you're not going to have a little, some progressive injury. Like I'm kind of prone to tendonitis in my shoulders. I just have to manage it.
Of course,
And right, and I'm not. I'd like to recapture my youth, but it's not at this point in my season. It's not possible for me. I can get stronger and faster, but I have to be really careful about overdoing it, because once that tendonitis spurs on, then that's a problem.
That is a very good point to hit, and the way I've thought about it, and this had me twisted up in knots for a couple of years after my ACL injury, until I realized this is like your body is a slightly broken machine always. Like there's one part that's slightly broken that's not right. It's never going to be perfect. And whenever you become okay with that, but still willing to try to improve it, to try and address the issues, that's where the secret sauce and magic is.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. A broken machine. It is. It's a
Slightly
very
broken.
strong, very vibrant machine, but they can have some broken pieces in it. And
always slightly broken.
Right. We just have to, squirt a little WD-40 on there and go. But, it's just part of exercising. Your body wants, actually, to be honest with you, your body wants to stay in that homeostasis spot. It doesn't want to really do anything. So that's when you exercise, you're stressing it, and it says, what the hell am I doing? And it has to adapt to that stimulus. And over a certain period of time, your body will adapt to that stimulus. And then it's like, okay, I'm good now. And it wants to just stay there again. It doesn't backtrack. It just stays there. Then guess what? You stress it out again. And it's this constant, stress adaptation. And, eventually that's going to lead to some nicks and dings along the way. I mean, it happens to everybody that wants to exercise.
And there's basically two types of people too. Whenever it comes to this, it's like person number one, you really got to kick them in the ass. It's hard to kind of get them to go in the first place, but once
Yeah.
you get started, you're good. There's other people that are the exact opposite, that work way too hard all the time. You can't get them to stop and recover.
Right. You got to rein them back.
Yeah. So just realizing which one of those two types of people you are is like you should look out for your tendencies.
Right. And that's why, actually it brings us into this, we're going to be finishing up soon, but we do what we do because we know human behavior. We see it all the time, and we both are really good at creating platforms for the people like the slower starters to start quicker, and we create platforms for the people that are just gung-ho about let's go about reining them back. Now there's certain times where either of those situations is okay, but for the most, that's like the extremes. In the middle of the bell curve is really where we should be most of the time. So that's something, if y'all watch and needed a little bit of help with, then that's Marty or I could help you out with that.
Absolutely. So I think we've been going for somewhere close to an hour and a half, which is.
Woo! Have we? Holy crap.
Yeah.
It goes so quick with you, Marty.
I mean, just to wrap this up, Brent and I have spent a lot of time with each other, like we said, getting into this, and we just had knowledge and information that both of us felt like we had to get out into the open and do this. And it does come very easily to us to do this, but you guys as listeners to this, please let us know any questions that you have so we can get them addressed specifically. We'll even, if we need to, add on like Q&A webinars to this, to where we
absolutely, why not,
address questions. But I think that's going to wrap it up for today. And like I alluded to earlier, if you talk to either one of us long enough, you're going to find that this all comes back down to mindset. So mindset is what we're going to be talking about in round number 3. So super pumped and excited about that.
Yeah, that's going to be cool, man. I love that.
Yep. All right. So Brent, you got anything else?
No, man, I think they've had enough of us. I mean, they might want to keep looking at you, but my ugly mug, I think they're done with.
I got my beard back, so they don't have
I see that, man. I spit shine my face this morning, so I'm good.
All right. Well, let us know if you have any questions, and we will see you guys in round 3. Bye, everyone.